Sir William Seal.
Thank you for the opportunity. I do agree with the earlier speaker that there were some serious issues debated earlier at the beginning of this parliamentary session. However, the public listening in to this would not have known that this was serious given the way the backbenchers of the National Party chatted and grumbled and tried to interfere when opposition members were making contributions. There is another serious matter, sir, that I want to raise, and that has to do with the great house sale, the state house sale by this particular government. Only the other week I heard Dr. Shane Reti, during his maiden speech, make a comment which resonated with me. He made reference to the fact that he grew up in a state house. But the point that I thought was important, and I'm not sure whether the rest of the House noted, was that he talked about the need for us to take responsibility for those following behind from us. Now, unlike what Dr. Shane Reti said, there are members of this House who don't feel that way, who have similar experiences, who had the advantage of being supported through a state house, but now in the positions that they're in, they do not want to pass that support to the rest of the population. I also heard Dr. Lance O'Sullivan, another Northlander, say that when his parents could not provide for him, his country supported him. And now, as a result of that, he spends all of his day giving back to the community. And unlike what I've heard from the Prime Minister, somebody who grew up in a state house, the Minister Paula Bennett, who grew up in a state house, I have no doubt Alfred Ngaro, who grew up in a state house, Sam Lotoinga, who grew up in a state house. It seems that they have now taken a stance that it was okay for our country to support them, but they have taken another stance, sir, that they do not want. Well, that's probably because he's named Ngaro, which is pukapukan for somebody who's lost, for somebody who's forgotten. So he's forgotten that the rest of New Zealand supported him, and now he has forgotten that he has a duty to support those of us, or those who are less fortunate of us, coming through. Sir, there is a 6,000 waiting list, more than 6,000 people who are waiting to get into a state house because they could not afford to pay the market rent, and because they are now currently living in someone's garage or sharing a relative's living room or in a boarding house or in an emergency house, or as we saw the other day, living in a car or in a caravan park. These people, sir, shower at the public toilets. They use the sports club facilities there to get dressed, to prepare their children and to go to school. They do not have regular income because on one week they will have a 40-hour week that they are paid on, and then another week, sir, they don't have any hours because of the casualisation of the work that they're in. That is the reality, sir. And we currently have a housing crisis that this government refuses to acknowledge. It refuses to acknowledge that there's child poverty. We don't hear them using that particular word anymore. They continue to say something else to try and cover the situation, the crisis that we're in, sir. Sir, prior to the election, a young woman came to my office. Her mother had passed away. There were three of them, two and young siblings. She was 18 years of age, and a young sibling at 6 and another one at 3 years of age. Housing New Zealand were determined to evict them because the house was in their mother's name. These three young people could not live with a relative because the auntie already had a full house. Now, prior to the election, we managed to convince Housing New Zealand that they would find sustainable accommodation. After the election, guess what? Instead of giving them the proper notice, they then said they had to move out. They had to move out to the private sector. They had to find, and this is quote from the official's mouth, sustainable accommodation. I could not convince them that these three young children needed a house to live in. In fact, what they said to me was, it is against government policy to house this group of young people who could not live on their own because their parent had died, sir. And so, guess what? They know that there is a housing crisis, but they don't care. They don't care one iota.